All right, two of the president's favorite topics, immigration and the economy. They are much more intertwined than many people may realize. Before taking office, the president and his economic team talked about getting the country's gross domestic product growth to 4%. He actually said 5% and 6% as well. So this is something it hasn't done since the 2000s. But there is a key ingredient to hitting and sustaining high GDP growth, and that is workers, labor force. The president's team celebrated when the June's job report came out, where we found out that there were more open jobs, 6.7 million of them, than people available to fill them, 6.4 million. But it could be very well an indicator that this administration needs to expand immigration into the United States rather than limit it. In the year 2000, the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, touted the news of the U.S. meeting the replacement rate for the first time since 1971. That's the number of births per year for a generation that is needed to replicate its numbers, keep the labor force up. Like in many developed countries, people have fewer children, so maintaining or growing the population is an economic imperative that requires steady, or even in America's case, increased rates of immigration. Since hitting that replacement rate in 2000, the fertility rate has bumped up a little bit. This is births per thousand, by the way. Take a look at this. Look at where we've gone here. It's bumped up a little bit, but it started a steady decline about a decade ago. We are simply having fewer babies. As older Americans retire, the number of workers per Social Security beneficiary is also on the downturn, meaning we're going to need more immigrants to fill jobs, sustain the economy, and contribute to your retirement if you'd like that to happen. But a new rule proposed by this administration could put a chill on immigration. The Department of Homeland Security proposed creating new criteria that would disqualify immigrants from getting a green card if they were likely to use government-subsidized medical care, housing, and food benefit programs, even for a short time. This is all part of an anti-immigration calculus. The belief is that immigrants come into America and suck up our social services that are paid for by real Americans. But other than the fact that legal immigrants pay into these systems, analysis done by the Libertarian Cato Institute found that while immigrants tend to use SNAP, Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, the food stamps, if you will, and Medicaid at slightly higher rates than native-born Americans, their use of other programs are either on level with or far below native-born use. And another study by the Cato Institute found that immigrants have a nearly net zero impact on government budgets. There's actually a net positive benefit on revenue to all levels of government, according to a 2012 study by the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. This is just scratching the surface on this. The idea that there are too many immigrants in America or that immigration is a danger economically to America is patently false, Stephanie.
Okay, but here's the issue, Ali Velshi. What you did, and it took about 2 minutes to do it, was explain in a detailed and fact-based way the impact of immigrants in this country. Pair that against someone with a podium or an itchy Twitter finger saying those immigrants are going to fill your schools, and in your schools we're going to have to teach Spanish, so we can't teach gym. And those same people are saying, and those immigrants coming in are going to fill your hospitals. That's a much easier message for the president to put out there, put fear in the country, and people believe it. What you just delivered to us was actual facts, and I would hope and pray that people will listen to them.
Both.
Joining us now, Bloomberg's Sahil Kapoor, Maria Teresa Kumar, President and CEO of Voto Latino, and Republican strategist John Weaver. All right, Maria, you pointed out some statistics to our team. In 2014, there were 2.9 million immigrant entrepreneurs. That means job creators. That same year, foreign-born entrepreneurs made more than $65 billion. And in 2007, there were 5.9 million people employed at immigrant-owned firms. This is not about Americans being nice and letting the immigrants in.
It might be nice, but that's not the point.
It's what we need. Why are these cold, hard facts that help our economy and the American people, why are these lost in translation to the president's message, they're filling your schools?
Well, it's a lot easier to pivot when you actually want political expediency. No one can deny that the country is changing absolutely rapidly. What Ali was able to demonstrate that all of a sudden you had high birth rates, and all of a sudden right after 2010, all of a sudden it went down. It was also when immigration started getting neutralized. Because between 2000 and 2010, 51% of all births were of immigrant families. So And when you start talking about the fact that, yes, immigrants take a little bit more of benefits for Medicaid and housing, it's for their American children. So the majority of the folks that we're talking about is actually Americans reaping in those benefits. And what we have to have a serious conversation is, what do we do with the 11 million that are undocumented right now that are contributing? How do we talk about future immigration flows? Because that is a grown-up conversation to have.
Yeah.
And then how do we recognize that a lot of these undocumented immigrants pay literally $11 billion to our economy back in taxes every single year? We could say they pay more than the President of the United States has in the last 20 years.
John, this should be a bipartisan conversation.
Absolutely.
There are lots of Republicans with very, very sensible views of immigration. Lots of states run by Republicans where they realize, boy, we need guest worker programs, we need all sorts of things. But our immigration conversation in America has focused on, it's a boogeyman, the southern border where all sorts of crazies are coming along to do other things. We have an immigration problem in America, and it's not the one Donald Trump keeps talking about.
That's exactly right. We were close to solving this problem twice before. The McCain-Kennedy bill passed the Senate twice. It failed in the House, thanks in large part to this dystopian message that was at the time pushed by Rush Limbaugh and Fox News. That's only gotten worse. We ultimately have to deal with this. I'm hopeful that not in the time between this midterm and 2020, but the next president will have a unique opportunity to fix this once and for all. We can move forward.
But to Maria's point, these immigrants who maybe are using assistance, they're using it, as she said, for their American children. Is that the issue that sort of that far-right audience is biting onto, that those children don't deserve to be Americans? And that's where we got to President Trump's argument that last week seemed absurd to us, but is it not absurd to lots of people out there?
Well, he's jumped the shark the last 2 weeks. And so if you look in areas where there are a lot of immigrants or even people here illegally, those voters in those areas are moving back to the Democrats or at least rejecting that message. In lily white states, lily white districts, they're holding firm with the president. But he jumped the shark, and so what we're seeing is a retrenchment back to kind of a sensible policy at the voter level, and I'm encouraged by that.
I hope so. Sahil, you've tweeted a lot about this. Quite simply, the short answer to this, it's even shorter than what I did over there, in 10 seconds or less, immigrants is something Americans need.
Can I add one fact to everything you pointed out, which was excellent? The National Bureau of Economic Research studied this over 20 years and found that for every one job that immigrants take, they add 1.2 jobs to the economy. In other words, they're a net job creator. A lot of them are small business owners, and the biggest beneficiary of those jobs are native-born Americans. I also want to very briefly address the president's kind of nexus of immigration and crime. This is not backed by the evidence. There's no evidence that illegal immigration leads to an increase in violent crimes. It's been studied ad nauseum, and there is evidence that first-generation immigrants commit crimes at lower rates than native-born Americans.
Got it.
But when we talk, but just briefly, when we talk about the economy, when he mentions that they create 1.5 jobs, it frees women to go back to work. It allows all of a sudden women that may have to take care of their parents or their children, all of them, and it actually doubles it. So immigrants, for the most part, they actually complement the work that we need to do in this country.
On healthcare workers, we talk about it all the time. And remember, we do not have affordable child care in this country, and we need it. That's what's keeping a lot of women out of the workforce.
As Maria says, we need an adult conversation about this. I hope we get it as a result of your vote. Sahil,
I'm going to
Maria,
say that was just a
and
good
John,
one.
that's right, but we need them to be had in Congress, in governor's mansions, in legislatures across this country. Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.